some folks. Like I say, I guess I just glide through life with blinders on. And I just listen to the song, and that's a nice sounding song, and I don't even listen to the words. And now my wife's got me on this word kick. Oh, listen to the words to this song. It's just beautiful. Or listen to the words to this song. Don't you know what that means? No. Well, I guess it's a good thing I don't have kids then, right? Or I'd just be up in arms and outraged about musical lyrics. Let's go to Calvin in Pennsylvania, east of the Rockies. You're on the weekend. Welcome to the program.
Hey, how are you doing?
Okay.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Good, we can hear each other.
Cool.
Okay.
So, you're wondering, why am I calling you, right?
Yeah,
you know why I'm calling. Actually, I was sitting here, I was noticing that my demographic wasn't quite hit today. I've been hearing a lot of people talk about, when I was back in the 60s, I listened to this, and my dad didn't like it, and now, I don't understand. I'm saying the same things to kids that are listening to this rap music, but rap music isn't real music. To me, basically, any time you have something that is offensive, as some of these rap lyrics are, that means that there's a problem in society, because these guys are rapping about things that are real to them. Now, I'm not saying that the music needs to be cut off. I'm not saying the music needs to be stopped. But they're rapping about things that have to do with their lifestyle, that have to do with their lives. And it's the majority of people I've heard, they couldn't probably even understand it because they don't live those lifestyles. And the kids that are listening to it who don't live those lifestyles, they look at that and they go, wow, this is something I don't see every day. And they're learning from the music, whether they learn not to do that or to do it, who's to say right now? But I figure they're going to make it. They're going to make it past that point. It's music.
I think of rap music, and I'm just like I guess I can call myself a middle-aged white guy.
Right.
And I don't want to understand rap music, because the idea being that I think rap music is for the people that are singing it and people that can understand what it's saying. And I think that was your point. I don't want to try and understand it. I like to know what was being said just out of curiosity's sake.
Right.
But then they're just going to change it to something else that I can't understand, because they don't want 40-year-old white guys to understand what the hell they're saying.
But that's the whole thing, though. Any good music is going to transcend across many different age groups, many different demographics. Think about Will Smith, for instance. Parents just don't understand. Now, you're a middle-aged 40-year-old white guy, but I bet you heard that song before, and maybe even possibly, I don't know if you did, maybe enjoyed it, because it was telling a story about a kid who took his parents' car out, and it was very much along the same lines of what we heard in the 50s, what we heard in the 60s. Kids just getting themselves into trouble that's not shooting people or killing someone. There's so many different styles of rap music. There's so many different styles of hip-hop that to lump all of them into one category to say it's all violent gangster rap, it's a farce. It's impossible to do that. There's so many different styles, and I wouldn't expect you to necessarily bend yourself to go and listen to that stuff. But there's dance music. There is gangster rap, and I mean, I'm a musician. I'm in a punk band. I mean, we're in the whole other spectrum of what would be quote-unquote the white music, but I'm an African-American lead singer of a punk band, and the lyrics that I write are mostly biblically based, but no one knows it. To listen to it from the outside with the screaming and the yelling, the people going nuts, you'd think I was talking about taking over the world, but in all actuality, I'm pretty much talking about stuff I learned in church.
Well, let me ask you this, though. If you listen to stuff, even go back to early stuff like Black Flag, early punk stuff, and Sex Pistols. I mean, a lot of that stuff was about anarchy and breaking things and violence. It was just as violent as some rap music stuff is now.
Definitely.
But you know what it was I think the thing about underground and punk music is that a lot of times parents just weren't even privy to hearing what their kids were listening to.
Exactly.
I think with the advent of things like the Walkman, kids can walk around and listen to stuff that you can't hear on the radio, because, face it, when I was a kid, all you had was a transistor radio if you wanted to listen to stuff while you were walking around someplace.
Right.
Or then it turned into a boom box. You had to carry it around, and the thing was enormous. And nowadays, you can carry around a little CD changer with you and listen to whatever you want. And your parents...
MP3 player.
Yeah, and your parents don't have any clue what you're listening to. And then you get this goofy stuff. Like, remember the thing with Better Than You, Better Than Me, or whatever the song was, the Judas Priest song, where the kids sat around and smoked pot all day, and then they finally shot himself and killed himself. The other guy didn't do it right and blew his face off and ended up killing himself later. And then the parents sued.
Right.
Because they said it was the music's fault, and they sued Judas Priest, the band. And that's just nonsensical. The music had nothing to do with it.
No matter what the music is that someone's listening to, whether it be rap or whether it be Gregorian chant, if you are a parent and you're not involved in what your children are doing actively, every single thing that your child takes into them, if you're not a part of what goes on in their lives, that doesn't mean, being Hitler over top of them and, running everything they do. But if you're not a part of it, then there's always the possibility that a child is going to interpret things improperly. With all the things that personally with me that I do, I'm also a high school teacher. So a lot of times my kids who normally wouldn't have been allowed to go out to a punk show or go out and see, some heavier bands, their parents allow them to go because they go, well, they're with their teacher, and I know he's not going to let them get in trouble, which they're right about. Every teacher's not that way. I am. But I'm there, and I'm part of their guidance. I'm not going to let the kids get into trouble. Every parent doesn't have that luxury. But if you're not involved with your kids and what they're listening to and being able to explain it to them, if a parent's not there to explain, hey, when this guy says, this word or that word about a woman, he's using that as a slang term or that, that you should not be using those words. If you like the beat and you like the way the lyrics go together, that's fine, but you don't need to be this kind of person. Parents should be involved.
Thank you, Calvin. I appreciate the phone call. You're absolutely right. I think parents should have some interest in what their kids are listening to. This is why I'm just so glad that I'm not a parent. And I don't want to have kids, and my wife doesn't want to have kids, and, of course, my mother and her mother both want us to have a kid. And I said, for God's sake, I don't want to be 58 years old and be worrying about what my kid's listening to. I want to be 58 years old and vacationing in Cozumel. That's what I want to do when I'm 58. And my wife and I want to spend our money on us. Is that selfish? No, I think that's responsible. If you don't want the responsibility of having to babysit kids and take care of kids because you've got to babysit them until the day you die in one form or another, you got to make sure they're doing okay, and do you have enough money, or, is your roof leaking, or God knows what. And it's a big responsibility. And it's a responsibility that we chose not to take on. And I suppose, as Calvin said, and high school teacher, and it's interesting, though, because I've listened to some stuff. I've dialed around. I listen to radio a lot. And you dial around and you say, oh, this is a pretty cool song. It's heavy metal or whatever sounding. And then you listen close, and it's, I don't know, God rock. Is that what they call it? That stuff used to be terrible. He used to listen to that stuff, and I was like, oh, come on. For God's sake, who are you trying to kid? And then I guess it got better. I have an issue with that as well, the whole idea of mixing God and music. And I believe in God. I'm not going to tell you not to do that sort of thing. It's just, for the most part, I just feel like that style of music is supposed to tick off your parents, right? It's not supposed to say, oh, listen to this. This is really, Mom and Dad dig it too, because I can listen to it in church. I don't know. It seems a little weird. It's bastardizing something. It's not true to its original form, or something like that. If you'd like to reach the program, the phone number is 888-860-8785. I'm Rick Gilmour. This is The Weekend.
Mostly sunny today, high in the lower 40s. 31 and sunshine at WTAM 1100.
I brought up Rob in the break. He said he was watching a VH1 special about punk rock. He said he was watching. He said the Sex Pistols basically didn't know how to play instruments. Not very well, no. And if you want to rent a great movie, a couple of them. One of them, Sid and Nancy, about Sid Vicious and Nancy Spungen. Nancy was his girlfriend, and they claimed, they were going to put him up on charges of ODing her with heroin, and then he OD'd. So it's a great movie, though, if you ever get a chance to. It's depressing in the end. And the other one is The Decline of Western Civilization. There's parts 1 and 2. Part 1 is about punk music. Part 2 is about heavy metal music. And, in fact, in The Decline of Western Civilization Part 2, you get to see Ozzy Osbourne making breakfast, frying eggs. That's an interesting experience. And is it the decline of Western civilization? Is rock music taking us all to hell in a handbasket? Are the lyrics offensive? You can log on to the website here at the station I emanate from, WTAM 1100. Log on to WTAM.com and check our cyber vote out. And it asks the question, are you as offended by your kids' music as your parents were by yours? My parents never listened to any of the music I listened to. And besides, I listened to anything and everything. I grew up listening to 78 records that I found in my parents' basement. So I grew up listening to Spike Jones and Frankie Lane, and then the Monkees and the Beatles, and then anything and everything. and all sorts of offensive, horrible things. You want to find something offensive that's truly funny? Get an album by Frank Zappa called Chic Your Booty and listen to Bobby Brown. Stuff like that. It would never, ever, ever, ever get airtime on commercial radio. Ever, ever, never, never, never. Because if you hear it, you'd know why. Let's go to Rocky in San Francisco. You're on the weekend. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Rick.
Howdy.
You can hear me, okay. It's interesting. Your topic is very interesting. Louie Louie is actually a reggae song from about 1963, I think.
Yeah, it was, I'm trying to think of the name of the guy that did it. It was written by Richard somebody or other. I don't know. I don't remember now.
Mm-hmm. But there actually are words.
Oh, I know.
I don't know offhand, but there are words to it.
It's about a guy sailing off to find his dream girlfriend or something. I thought it was
like that.
Yeah, it was really nothing. I mean, people thought it was something dirty because they couldn't understand it.
Well, and it was fun to listen to too. It was like a drinking song from that period, I think.
Yeah, every time I listen to it, it reminds me of Animal House.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's intended to. And the other thing I wanted to say was I'm a dad and granddad, and probably about the same age you are. And I found that I go to new music in San Francisco, which I find all types of different genres, and the excitement in the new music is just beyond anything we ever had.
Really? I thought I suppose you're not talking about music that you generally hear on the radio.
No, not generally. Well, there are a few stations. College stations will play it, and you can get it on the Internet if you go to Internet radio stations and listen to it. But they're very popular heavy metal and also like a reggae style of music that is very exciting. And I'll even get in the mosh pit with my grown children and mosh it out with them.
Do they enjoy that?
Oh, yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's very sweaty and a different kind of experience, but it's a unique thing and a lot of fun.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, as far as good music goes, new music, and a lot of stuff can be found offensive and probably is too offensive to air on the radio or is too off the mainstream, off the beaten path sort of thing, but you can go to clubs and hear all kinds of stuff.
Oh, yeah, and it's a lot of it is nasty and has bad lyrics, but if you enjoy the beat and the way the people feel when they listen to it, I think it seems to be just the same thing we've always had. I mean, Aerosmith on.
Okay, so you being a grandfather and a father, do you find stuff that you listen to? Do you think that's dangerous and offensive and that your grandchildren shouldn't be listening to things like that?
Not a bit. It's fine, and I think as long as you actively listen with your children and try to understand what they're listening to and don't judge it right off, I think you'll be fine.
All right, thanks, Rocky. I think you're right. As long as you're actively involved in what's going on in your kid's life, that's more important than what they're listening to, because they could probably listen to Britney Spears and go off the deep end if they got mental problems, right? I don't think the music matters what the heck they're listening to. I mean, although some of the lyrics, they've changed, especially rap stuff, and you listen to it, and it's a lot different than anything that you would ever have heard. You really wouldn't have heard anything like that, I don't think, in the 50s. Tom on a cell phone, you're on the weekend. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Rick. Love your show. A couple points about parents getting involved with kids' music. First of all, I don't have any kids, but if my dad would listen to me or watch me or listen to me listening to Black Sabbath or Jimi Hendrix, I think I'd barf. And as far as him getting involved with listening to music, I think I'd go back to Bach or something. But question to you, how does Porky Chedwick stack up to being the one of the main people in the history of rock and roll?
You know, you're asking a guy who's 40 years old, and Porky Chadwick was a little before my time. I mean, I wonder about the whole Alan Freed thing. I mean, Freed seems to get the credit for coining the phrase rock and roll, whereas the term rock and roll was used in songs long before Alan Freed coined the phrase. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm saying that somebody had to take the credit for it, and I guess it was given to Alan Freed. Mm-hmm. Porky Chadwick, like I said, a little before my time.
Okay. And really, do you really feel that parents ought to get involved with listening to new age music with their kids?
No, well, I think maybe the way I should have put it was that I think parents should be actively involved in what's going on in their kids' life, and then that way, whatever they listen to, it won't matter.
Well, yes and no. I listen to Jimi Hendrix and Frank Zappa and Ozzy Osbourne or Black Sabbath at the time. And today, if I hear it on the radio, I might listen to it for a minute. But, people change, and I think it's just a part of getting old.
I think you're probably right, Tom. Thanks for checking in. Yeah, I listen to stuff, that I listened to back in the 70s. And if you listen to stuff with Judas Priest, for example, if you listen to something like The Ripper or Victim of Changes or stuff. And at the time, it seemed like it was offensive. And now, you could probably sit down and my parents wouldn't want to hear it just because it's like, that's too noisy. But the words wouldn't offend them. And I think people do change. And that's the problem. See, by the time somebody gets to sit in a chair like this one, they're probably 40 years old. So now you're going to get some sort of an opinion. I tried to think of myself as being 40 physically and maybe 25 mentally. Well, maybe 12, depending on if you ever listen to my program. But it's one of those things that life goes on and changes, and I don't think rap music's going away, so deal with it. And like I say, if you're involved with your kids, you won't have to worry about it because no matter what they listen to, they'll turn out fine. If you'd like to join the program, the phone number is 888-860-8785. Want to email me? That's Gilly, Gilly, at WTAM.com. I'm Rick Gilmour, and you're listening to The Weekend. Howdy. Welcome back to The Weekend. I'm Rick Gilmour. Phone number here, 888-860-8785. Yeah, the more I think about it, I was talking with people in the complex during a break, and... yeah, I didn't want my parents to listen to the music I listened to. I'm glad they were involved in my life. And I turned out fine, didn't I? I'm here. But I really didn't want them checking out the music I was listening to. I wouldn't listen to it when they were around. And I'm glad I got those headphones, because then I could buy all kinds of stuff. And nobody had any idea what I was listening to. And that's just the way it goes. That's fine by me. I turned out just fine, didn't I? However, the stuff I was listening to wasn't really quite as violent as rap music. But then I don't live in the inner city. Well, I do now. I didn't live in the inner city then, but now people want to live in the inner city. Go figure. Well, I like the name of that. Glenn in Intercourse, Pennsylvania. You're on The Weekend.
Yes, Rick. Kudos to the great topic you picked.
Well, actually, I should give credit to my program director, Ray Davis, because he picked it.
Well, great for carrying it out. I've been listening intently to what you said. You're 40 years old. I'm 49, and I'm not a grandfather yet. But I do listen to alternative music as best I can. But I was wondering, where can you pick up more things like Fatboy Slim, Underworld, groups like that? AMP on MTV2 used to be on, but I can't seem to find it forever.
You're talking about just you can't go to a record store?
Well, just trying to listen to the music before I got to go to the record store. MTV2 used to have a program called AMP, and it's I can't seem to find it anymore.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's hard for me to find that around here, too.
It did have a lot of that kind of music you were talking about earlier, but I did the same thing as you were saying in the early years, listening to The Who on my transistor radio out in the tobacco patch, so... I think it's much like you were saying. I don't think my parents cared that much, but I'm just as glad they didn't have to tune into it either.
Remember when the Who had that concert in Cincinnati and some people got stomped to death?
Yes, yes.
A buddy of mine had a punk band, and they did a song called, one of them was called the Cincinnati Stomp, and the other one was I'd Walk Over You to See the Who. Now, I'm sure, that was as politically incorrect 25 or 20-some years ago as it is now.
Right. Yeah, well, I guess the closest stomp I'm aware of is the Bristol Stomp down here near Philly. So, that's the thing about some of the, I guess the rap music hasn't quite gone to that extreme yet. So maybe in some ways it's violent in its content, but like you said, unless you're from the inner city, and my daughter listens to it, and like you were saying earlier, the lyrics are just unbelievable.
See, I didn't listen to it, and I will listen to it because I'll listen to anything and everything, and it's amazing because you said you're 49, and I bump into people, and they're 40-something, 50, and I'm bumping into these people, and they know as much about new music as anybody that's 17.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird in a way because I was sitting at a bar next to a guy, and he looked like he was, 50-something, and he's going on and on about how he used to go to all these concerts and local stuff in Cleveland, and I'm thinking, well, not only does it make him look old, it makes me feel old because I went to those shows too.
Yeah.
And one of the best shows I ever went to was the place, the Old Agora here in Cleveland. Wendy O. Williams and the Plasmatics.
Oh, yeah.
And she was going to smash stuff on stage with a sledgehammer, and she ended up with electrical tape on her nipples and shaving cream. And as we were leaving, a bunch of police cars, well, they were unmarked Grand Furies, came flying up and parked in front of the place, and a bunch of fat guys in plaid suits got out, and I thought, they're not going in to see the show. And then she got arrested, and then she claimed that the Cleveland police beat her in jail. Yeah. And I highly doubt that. She probably thrashed around, and she came to an untimely end as well. But I've run into people at that show, and I said, remember the guy in back standing on the table all night, and they kept telling him to get off the table, and he kept standing back up on the table, and they're like, I remember that dude. I go, yeah, that was me. So I guess, I mean, maybe that's an attachment to our youth, is that you can listen to new music, like you're 49 and you want to find more Fatboy Slim. And there is some good new stuff out there, but a lot of the pop syrupy garbage crap I can't listen to.
Yeah, well, I like garbage.
Well, yeah, that's different. But pop syrupy garbage crap is different. Yeah. All right, thanks, Glenn. Yeah, I guess it's actually a good thing to get old, isn't it? Because it beats the alternative. At least you're on the right side of the grass. Mike in Cleveland, you're on the weekend. Welcome to the program.
Hey, Gilly.
Howdy.
Talked to you a long time.
How you been there?
I've been going big time. I'm going Art Bell, man.
Oh, you're listening to Art Bell?
National radio, man.
Oh, I see. You know what's
the show yesterday?
What's on your mind?
Global warming.
Pardon?
Global warming. You know, warm 1 minute and cold as heck the next.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess. This is the mystery call, wild card line. You're on the air.
Yeah, that cracks me up. But really, rock and roll?
Yes.
I mean, if they can get away with what they had to get away with, they would have. You think so, Gilly?
I think you're right, Mike. Thanks. What he said. Could you decipher that, or was Mike using a scrambler? I got part of it. It's just like I had a guy call a program, and you would swear if you heard the guy, he sounded like Boomhauer from King of the Hill. I had a very difficult time trying to understand him. But we recorded it, and once you listen to it very carefully, you take a fork and eat it carefully, like my vice principal told a friend of mine back in junior high when he got a fish sandwich with a bone in it. I suggest you take a fork and eat it carefully. If you record a conversation and listen to it carefully, you can make out what they said. So I'd have to sit down and listen to some stuff. That's why maybe I'm blessed that I don't listen to lyrics. That's too much like work. I just want to listen to the song. A lot of great songs, like Rockefeller Skank by Fatboy Slim. And that's been used in so many commercials, you wouldn't even know it. You're like, what's that? Check it out now, the Funk Soul Brother. You know, and then you listen and you go, damn, that's familiar. Well, of course it's familiar because it's been in movie trailers for movies like Go. It's been in pop commercials where the guys are doing donuts in the Barracuda and the pop's sliding back and forth across the dashboard. And anything like that can't be all bad, I would guess, if they can use it and it has universal appeal and people wouldn't even know what the hell it is. Now, if you get the CD Fatboy Slim, You've Come a Long Way, Baby by Norman Cook, and you listen to Fatboy Slim is Doing Something in Heaven, which I can't repeat, and that's all the song does is repeat that over and over and over. If that's the only song you heard off the whole CD, you'd say, well, this is garbage. This is offensive. This is sacrilegious. Well, what did he mean by saying that over and over? I don't know. I'm not Norman Cook. Never met the man. And if you're into Fatboy Slim, you might want to check out the Pump DJs. Something else for that Glenn in Intercourse, Pennsylvania, to have an impossible time out in the tobacco patch trying to find in his local record store. Try the internet. There's a place, I think it's New York University or somebody like that you can go to, and they'll sell almost anything. Try the internet. I'm Rick Gilmour. This is The Weekend. Howdy, your old pal Gilly here. This is The Weekend. Phone number, 888-860-8785. I was speaking with my board operator, Rob, in the break, and he says he wondered if you have to come to an untimely end to be a rock legend. Look at Hendrix, Elvis, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, Kurt Cobain. You know, out of them, Hendrix, Joplin, Morrison, and Cobain, unless I'm mistaken, were all 27 years old. Like that magic age. Other untimely ends, though. Elvis died on the potty straining at stool from having a psychopharmacological condition in his body. Wake up, take pills to wake you up. Want to go to bed? Take pills to make you tired so you can go to bed. John Lennon. But if you look at people like out of the rock loop, you look at people like Belushi, John Belushi and Chris Farley. I mean, Belushi, I don't know if he had a death wish. He just liked drugs. But Farley seemed like he had a death wish and was trying to push that time frame. He was trying to push that so he would die at 32, as the same age as Belushi. Difference is, John Belushi was really funny, whereas Chris Farley was a big fat guy who rolled around and slapped himself. And I didn't think he was very funny at all. Well, I'm sure he had his moments. I mean, the van down by the river bit was relatively amusing. But in general, the body of work, I don't think Chris Farley is going to be remembered for any of his great films or even interesting, funny films. Belushi was funnier on his worst day than Farley was on his best. Jim in Lexington, you're on the weekend. Welcome to the program.
Oh, hey. This whole topic now is so subjective today that you're talking about with the music. As far as, like your show today, couldn't they get a real DJ to do this show? Or?
Thanks for checking in there, Tiger. Do they need a DJ to do a talk show? I don't think so. That's what talk show hosts are for. This is the weekend. It's not the musical weekend. We played a bit of music. Some people just like to pick nits. And you, sir, are a nitpicker. Oh, Karen in San Francisco. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Rick, and welcome to my weekend.
Hey, glad to be a part of it.
Fascinating program. This has been very interesting. It brings up such memories of the 45s and the little sound booths that were a little bigger than phone booths where you tried out your records, pink radios, blue radios, all kinds of things. But
do you remember the booths that you could go in and sing your own song and it would scratch it out for you on a 45?
At that time, I was in Honolulu, and they didn't have that particular feature. They just had the turntable where you could close the door, listen to the record, and make sure you wanted to buy it.
Well, you can still do that at bookstores.
Can you?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, at least around here.
Out here, they don't have that.
Yeah, in Cleveland, you can go to a bookstore and you can try out a CD, and if you like it, you can buy it. And if you don't like it, I guess you just, put a big scratch on the back of it for somebody else and have a good laugh at their expense.
I wanted to comment in regards to the offensive lyrics. I can remember way back when, I think it was about 9 or 10 at the time, and we had just discovered a regional disc jockey by the name of Dick Biondi on a station out of Chicago.
I remember that name.
And
maybe I'm thinking of a sports guy named Biondi.
And I believe he got fired, as popular and king as he was in the region for some years, for having told a joke, something about an Italian meatball. And suddenly he no longer existed.
That's funny because he sounds like he has an Italian name. You wouldn't think it would matter.
And I was always curious what the joke was, because it was one of those things where one night I would listen to him as usual, didn't happen to catch the program the next evening, and the following night it was this big deal in all the papers and so forth that Biondi had been fired for his joke.
What year was this?
It would have been in the 50s. My guess would be, I don't know, maybe sometime between 55 and 59, right around in there.
Yeah, times have definitely changed.
Changed a lot indeed.
We have a gentleman on the mothership here, WTAM 1100, who's of Italian descent, who tells Italian jokes all the time, and there's not a peep. But now, if he were not Italian, that wouldn't be okay. It's like it's okay to use the N-word if you're black, but if you're not, you'll get fired.
Yep, it's a long, long way from when it was then, and I can remember being told, typically by our parents, that, when we matured, when we grow up, then we'd no longer listen to rock and roll, and that it probably wouldn't exist anymore.
And how untrue that was.
How untrue. Thanks for the great program, Rick.
Yeah, you're welcome, Karen. Thanks for calling. Yeah. Yeah, if you think about that, I wonder how many people are out there, how many DJs are out there that are now long of tooth that thought, I got fired for saying some stupid thing that you could say 100 times a day now. But then on the other hand, I don't think you could air a show in prime time like All in the Family. Now, my board op Rob said to me, but they show it on Nickelodeon. Yes, they do. They show it late at night. Whenever they show it, it doesn't matter. But it's not. Now it's a piece of. It's like, do you ever think that there would be a Little Black Sambo again? I don't think so. So it becomes a curiosity and an artifact, right? It's not something that you wouldn't trot out some product like that now. I don't think if you trotted out All in the Family right now that it'd fly. I think they'd say, geez, oh man, you're really pushing it. just because, and that's something else altogether different, called political correctness. And for a while there, well, at least we had some free reign, right? In the 70s and 80s, and things were going along okay there for a little while. And then along came people like Tipper Gore and the PMRC and all that. And ever since then, now you have to get a little warning label on your record because it might have the F word in it. And I think probably, and unfortunately, or maybe whatever, I mean, most kids that are 12 years old have heard every dirty word that we have. I'm Rick Gilmour. This is The Weekend. Musical lyrics offensive. Well, I see Susan in Miami says she listens to her 17-year-old's music. Welcome to the program, Susan.
Thanks for taking my call, Rick. I do listen to my daughter's music in the car. Sometimes I prefer to her to bring her CD player with her so she can listen to it on her own. But I'm 49. I also teach middle school, so I pretty much have a good realm of what's going on out there. My main concern is the role of women in the videos for these musics. A lot of times the women are made out nothing more than, just sex objects, and that's more what I talk to her about. Music you can listen to with the language. We can deal with the language, but I just wanted to know her place in society and what's good and what's not good for values.
All right, well, thanks for checking in there. You're starting to break up a little bit, Tigress. I was going to say, well, aren't women just sex objects? Some crude, offensive statement like that. Jeff in Nashville, welcome to The Weekend. Hey, you there, Tiger?
Yeah, hey, Rick, how are you?
Okay.
Hey, great show you got going on. I know that you don't feel this way, but I just wanted to pass on to some of your listeners who may be characterizing all the rap music that's out there as all about bitches and hoes and very negative and misogynistic music. And in fact, and you were referring to some of the late artists that died young, to draw it to light, Tupac Shakur, for example, has an amazing song called I Wonder If Heaven Got a Ghetto, basically saying, it's pretty bad here on earth and I may not live another day, and if this is the way it's going to end, I wonder if heaven got a ghetto, and this is where he's going to end up there as well.
Gee, did Biggie Smalls have a song like that too? Or?
Yeah, I imagine there are quite a bit of songs that actually are a lot more poignant and meaningful than what I think that a lot of people think really is going on out there. He has another song, for example, called Brenda's Got a Baby, about a 12-year-old who's, teenage pregnancy. And these are big issues, obviously, that are affecting, the urban youth. And I just am concerned that oftentimes the media stereotypes all of this music is really bad. And in fact, there's some really good stuff that's being written. You just got to pick through it. And I know you don't want to be the one to do it.
All right, Jeff. Well, thanks. No, it's not like I don't want to be the one to do it. I don't feel that I have to do it. I don't feel responsible to do it because I don't have kids. So I don't feel that I have to go out on a limb and try and find out what kids are listening to. I just listen to stuff and like it or reject it on the merit of whether or not I think it's good musically. As far as the lyrics go, I mean, sometimes you can listen to things and say, ooh, I feel titillated. It's wonderful that it's if you want to think about it, how many babies were conceived to Frank Sinatra songs? Probably plenty. I've made the attempt myself. Actually, I didn't want to make a baby. It's a lot more fun to try. So that's the way that goes. And as far as rap music goes, hey, I don't understand the music, and I don't think I should understand the music because I'm not living that life. And I'm sure you can find as much angst in white music as well. All right? All right. So rock and roll and all that. Yeah. Sex, drugs, rock and roll, and Christian music. I'm Rick Gilmour, and you're listening to The Weekend.